I once dropped a match into a half-gallon of gasoline, and what happened? Yes, boom. So I was not very bright as a 10-year-old, and I wanted some fireworks in my life, and I got exactly that when I dropped this match in this fuel. So I didn't consider the risk that I might be burned, the risk that I might set the whole backyard on fire, which is what happened. So whether you're a young child and you have some risk in your life, or you're an auditor and an adult, you need to consider what are the risks in audit engagements. In this chapter 13, we're going to take a look at the audit risk model. And once you understand the components of this model, you're going to be in a really good position to plan your future audit engagements and achieve success. So let's get into chapter 13, the audit risk model. In this chapter, I'm going to explain what audit risk is, and then I'll give you the three components of the audit risk model. First up, let's take a look at the definition of audit risk. And this is simply the risk that you complete the audit and you issue an inappropriate opinion. So most of the time, you're issuing an unmodified opinion. And that unmodified opinion says that the financial statements present fairly. If there's a material misstatement and we say they present fairly, well, now we have audit failure. We have issued an audit opinion that is not true. It doesn't correspond to the facts. That's what audit risk is. And we need to see that there's three components of this risk. And here they are. The audit risk model is made up of 1, inherent risk, 2, control risk, and 3, detection risk. One thing I want you to understand is the first two of these elements, you as the auditor don't control. In other words, these are risks that lie solely with your audit client. You only control the third element, which is detection risk. So as you're planning your audit, you're looking at the inherent risk and the control risk to determine what your risk of material misstatement is. And based on that risk of material misstatement, you're planning your procedures to lower the detection risk. So as an auditor, you have a risk that you'll do the audit, there will be material misstatement, and it won't be detected. To bring that risk down, we're going to gain an understanding. We're going to do risk assessment in relation to account balances and transaction cycles and disclosures. And we're looking at the inherent risk and control risk to determine how we're going to respond so that we can bring detection risk down. So what is inherent risk? It's the chance that an account balance, a transaction cycle, or a disclosure will be materially misstated without regard for controls. So as you consider inherent risk, you're going to ignore the internal controls of the client, and you ask yourself, is there a real high risk of material misstatement for this assertion in this account balance or transaction cycle or disclosure? Is there a high risk of misstatement? For example, when you look at the valuation assertion for allowance for uncollectible receivables, if it's a complex estimate, then there's a higher inherent risk because of the complexity. But you're not thinking about, does the client have a review process for the allowance for uncollectibles? You're ignoring the controls and you're focusing on the inherent risk factors. such as complexity, subjectivity, change, and susceptibility to fraud. Now, the second element in the audit risk model is control risk. So now we come to this element and we ask, will the client's controls detect or prevent material misstatement? Hopefully, as the client's inherent risk goes higher, they're creating internal controls to detect and prevent material misstatement. They're bringing down their own risk. And then that third element is detection risk. And again, this is your risk as the auditor. It's the chance that you or I will not detect the material misstatements that are there. The higher the inherent risk and control risk, then the more work we've got to do to bring down detection risk. I hope you find this video helpful in understanding the audit risk model. In summary, it's made up of inherent risk, control risk, and detection risk. And if we don't get these right, then we'll have audit risk, which is a risk that we would issue an inappropriate opinion. In the next video, we're going to take a look at relevant assertions, and we're going to do this before we take a deeper dive into inherent risk and control risk. We need to understand those assertions so that we know how to apply inherent risk and control risk. So that will be in our next video. Stay with us, and until then, take care. Bye now.